On this episode of ResiWeek, Lennar has Wi-Fi homes, can gamers drive AV, and Ring 2 has a removable battery but no PoE. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Access Networks and by Daylight, the leading producer of high-quality projector screens worldwide.
This is ResiWeek episode 75. Wi-Fi works?
This is ResiWeek.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Julie Jacobson. She's the founding editor of CE Pro. How are you today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming back.
Sure.
Then we have Kashyap. He's the CEDIA product market manager for Connex Pro. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least, I harassed my good buddy Tim Albright. He's the founder of AVNation to join us in a jacket.
A jacket? It's crazy. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Once in a while.
I'm doing great once in a while?
No, I get in a jacket once in a while. Sorry.
Exactly. That's why you had to show up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's jump right in. This comes to us from CE Pro and kind of ticked off, or not ticked off, but it started a little bit of a rumble amongst the industry this week. Julie Jacobson wrote this, which is part of the reason why she is here today. Lennar, who is the second largest home builder in the U.S., is adopting a Wi-Fi certified home design. They worked with the Wi-Fi Alliance to essentially design a deployment, a system, if you will, of marketing their homes and selling their homes with essentially strictly just Wi-Fi. No wired speakers, very little coax in the house, if any, very little network and category cable in the house, again, other than to their Wi-Fi points. Long and short, they're pushing for that fully wireless connected home. Now, Julie, as everyone saw, A, great article, but B, this kicked off a little bit of a tiff, shall we say, between the different views of where the industry is headed, i.e., Lennar, as you wrote in the piece, they're A, they're number 2 home builder, but B, they're doing a lot of, first-time home buyers. They're not doing the multi-mansions per se. That's not the core part of their business. So in doing this piece, obviously our community, the CEDIA community, is getting a little up in arms because, hey, we know that you can't do everything on a Wi-Fi basis. What pushed Lennar to go down this route?
Well, there's a few things. And first of all, I do want to say that there's no one that disagrees with the Wi-Fi certified program. It was developed with the Wi-Fi Alliance. People who know about it say it's really, really good. It does ensure no dead spots. It requires roaming capabilities across wireless access points. Lennar is using some of the best networking gear available from Ruckus. Mm-hmm. So everything about that is really, really good. Yay, go Lennar. Bad thing is that Lennar has decided to forsake almost all other wiring in the house. So currently the plan is, this is what I've heard from people that know about some of the details. Currently, the plan is to run category cable and good cable, Cat 6A, to potential wireless points, so anywhere from 1 to 3 in the home. They're not, at this point, running any other Cat 5 cables. Now, now, given that wireless is very, very good, especially Ruckus Wireless, especially if it's got good coverage in the home, that should be just fine, especially for new home buyers that are buying Lennar production homes. 4K probably doesn't matter so much, and in any case, a good wireless network can support 4K if there's not a whole lot of it, and a lot of it from your neighbors, and
exactly,
and all that. They're also Currently, the plan also is to run coax cable only to a couple of TV locations.
Yeah, like two locations, correct? Is that what it
in
was?
most homes,
Okay.
depending on the home, but in most homes, and again, that is the current plan, and the current plans are quite fluid. The thing is, first of all, on the coax side, we very likely will see a comeback of coax with the ATSC 3.0 specification. Everything is going to be going over coax for two-way communications, for content streaming, and for people that want to cut the cord. And
Right.
so coax really is going to become more important than ever before. And of course, with Ethernet, the Wi-Fi might be good enough today, but when you're talking about a future that sees a whole lot of interference from within the house, from refrigerators, from microwaves, and also from your neighbors, there's really no way to future-proof against that except to have
Cable.
a wiring infrastructure.
I agree.
You can boost your wireless access points, make them stronger, do everything, but then so are your neighbors. And
Yeah,
so
you can only boost it so far. Cash, is this kind of the tipping point between?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Like they're trying to eliminate all the low voltage wiring there, which kind of makes sense, and their plans are fluid. Yes, I agree with that. They can also have a Wi-Fi certification, for the future construction community, who obviously is going to deal with this, some sort of like a certified seal to make sure that these new homes will have built-in wireless. But yeah, two things I think which I'm still not decided if this will be a solid plan. One of them is intrusions on wireless Wi-Fi, which is totally penetrable. Anyone can hack into a wireless network and change the whole system and the infrastructure, of a home. Whatever they're playing, somebody can tap into it. It's very vulnerable. First. Second, I think that when you're saying that you're ensuring a whole house distribution coverage for Wi-Fi, definitely doesn't matter if you're going to add wireless extenders in those points, there's always going to be interference. And I agree with Julie on that point, that that next home, which is also built by Lennar, is going to have the same exact protocol, whatever that home A and B are running. Doesn't matter if it's down the street or it's close to it. What is the uniqueness here? What are we looking in terms of neutrality when it comes to this home? How would we separate these wireless signals? You're going to have a lot of interferences from EMI, from microwave, you name it out there. As the home technology industry is growing in terms of all these different aspects, we still on the safe side, why cannot just have the home being pre-wired with Cat 6A or coax, which would help in terms of bandwidth, especially when they're watching this 4K streaming movies, or we're using it for any other small technologies that requires internet access. This things should be considered. That's just my 2 cents.
No, very good point. So, Tim, is this the tipping point, though, between what is considered good enough for the average consumer, who, again, they're not as likely to be watching 4K on an Ultra HD player, connected to a full native 4K display. They're more apt to, say, go buy a 4K at Costco and stream to it with the built-in Netflix app.
Yep. Yeah, here's the yes, directly to answer your question, is that's exactly what you're looking at. Is you're looking at the vast majority, which they're a home builder. They're going after the median, right? They're going after the common denominator, the people that are going to buy their houses, and I get it from that aspect. My main concern with this entire story is, we were just at Infocom 2 or 3 weeks ago and had a conversation with Shure. Follow me for a second. Shure is a microphone manufacturer, and their main concern with wireless is the wireless spectrum for their wireless mics. Well, let's be frank here. Wi-Fi just is not some magic dust. It runs on an actual frequency, right? And the U.S. government has a tendency to sell off a lot of those frequencies every couple of years or so when they figure they need some money or whatever. That's my biggest concern with this. Is a great idea today, But what happens in 4 or 5 years or even 2 years when the FCC says, you know what, we there's a block of frequencies over here that nobody's using, quote unquote. Let's sell it off to somebody, to Google or to Alphabet or to Verizon or somebody. And then suddenly the devices that these folks that Lennar is putting into their houses are not only not working, but they're on the verge of being illegal. And I use that term a little bit loosely, but what the FCC sells off a frequency, the frequencies that run on those that aren't the FCC licensed frequency buyer are technically illegal. If you have a wireless mic that's on an old frequency, it's technically an illegal piece of product. So that is my biggest concern with this, is that the wireless frequencies in the government in the U.S. right now are nowhere near stable. So I don't know that I would put an entire infrastructure, but put on that as a platform.
So, Julie, just before we move on, you've obviously followed this industry for a long time. You've been in this industry a long time. I even remember, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago, when Wi-Fi really was starting to make a big hit and everybody residentially was doing it because you could. And I remember contractors and home builders locally here, they were pulling out cable. And that lasted for about 2 years. They were going through and renovating a whole house, and every piece of cable came out because, wireless is here. We'll just use Wi-Fi. And then, 3 years ago, give or take, they went back. And it was like, you know what? This is causing a lot of headaches. Let's rewire the whole stinking place again because, if we can wire it, it works better. Are we going to see that from not necessarily Lennar, but this concept? Do you foresee in 2 years we go back to that? Hey, if it can be wired, we're going to wire it.
I think we are. For starters, the Wi-Fi certified is a great marketing thing, and consumers are going to eat it up because they know their Wi-Fi doesn't work. They don't necessarily understand the ramifications for the future. But when it comes to resell their home in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, they might have a problem with it not being wired. The other thing is, there's perceptions, and people are super scared of hacking, and whether or not a wired infrastructure is more secure than wireless. People think it is. And I think we're going to see some backlash from these consumers who want that infrastructure for security reasons. Now, Wi-Fi can be more secure than wired since there's built-in encryption, whereas wired tends not to have that. But people assume that wireless is scary and easy to penetrate. And so I think we're going to see a little bit of backlash on that. And I think in a few years, we're going to find out that builders are putting that wiring back in.
I also have one other point that I think maybe I'm missing out here is, when they're building this thing, right, are they going to use a proprietary wireless products? Are they going to use Ruckus, Linksys?
Yeah, it's Ruckus right now.
Okay. That means it's going to come with a price tag, of course.
About $1,700 for a switch and 2 access points.
Wow.
Retail.
Okay, so they have to go buy it, or this is included in the home when they purchase?
It's included in the home.
Okay. So that means they're trying to promote. I feel like, obviously this is great for those luxury market who are really, going to be building. This is a lesson learned, that this is just one more whistle or a bell when you're selling a home. Wireless is just another boom that's coming out. Now, in the future, as we explore the CEDIA show this year, we can also see some other new items that, could be also be used in the home, from security cameras to, app-based locks, you name it. All these things are pretty much going to be, later on, sooner or later, either Lennar or She Homes or whoever these builders are they going to start adopting, which means wireless needs to be robust, stable, and based on the bandwidth now, because a typical home buyer obviously doesn't matter if it's subscribed to Spectrum, which is Time Warner, or or Comcast or whoever that cable provider is, or even AT&T U-verse now has to get more bandwidth, has to get a better plan in order to handle all these high videos and and streaming and all this. That means more, obviously more payment on top of my mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. It'll be something that will be fun to watch and see where they go from here. All right, let's move on to a story that comes to us from Residential Systems. Gaming news from E3 that will shape CI. Now, this is written by Michael Heiss. As you scroll down, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Michael's alluding to the fact that the two main gaming platforms, Xbox and PlayStation, are driving the CI market, or at least have the potential to drive the CI market. Cash, given the fact that Xbox and PlayStation are platforms that have native 4K capabilities, and the new PlayStation 1X or 1S, I believe, is going to have an Ultra HD Blu-ray player in it as well. Is this something that is going to, kind of the same way that the PlayStation allowed Blu-ray or really helped Blu-ray to become the dominant player in the market? Do these gaming systems have the ability to drive CI sales and CI systems when it comes to some of these platforms and some of the resolution bumps and the advancements they're making in that area?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I agree that, at some point of time, there are always going to be people lined up at these CI stores to buy this new game on a disc that supports 4K with, the HDR and, whatever they support needed. But at the same time, I think also, is there enough content out there that actually would support that? That's the thing. I mean, yes, these players are coming out with it. We're going with all these hardware and disc players, but my take is eventually everything is going to be on the cloud and it has to be streamed versus physical layer.
Mm-hmm. Tim, does the proliferation of 4K games that are available, and heck, some that were available even before the PlayStation, or sorry, not the PlayStation, but the Xbox was able to produce 4K, does that exceed the level that's available from studios, i.e. the fact that there are more games available?
Well, let's start with the delivery mechanisms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cash is right. A lot of it's going to be streamed, but a lot of it's going to be downloaded straight to the devices. You look at the content, and this is something that we had a conversation when HD first started being rolled out, 720 and then 1080i and P both. And a couple of years ago when 4K started making its inroads, and Sony had the first projector a couple of years ago, or 3-4 years ago now. The content, it was this drum roll from everybody that was kind of pushing back against this next resolution, whether it's, you would call it 4K or UHD, and we can get into an argument about the true nature of the marketing of that. But it is the delivery of this true content, of this true 4K content.
Mm-hmm.
I live in St. Louis. We have Charter. If you go to somebody's house that has Charter, and you look at their UHD or their HD content that's streamed, it's compressed down and then it's extrapolated out. It's not really HD. Same thing that's going to happen with 4K. It's going to be squashed and squished, and then but the stuff that comes off these gaming systems is really 4K.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is this is real. This is the real stuff. The HD resolution, the content that comes off these gaming systems is really, really HD, guys. So the 4K games are really true, not to coin another phrase, but true 4K. And that, I think, is going to drive some of these systems, because you've got both Xbox and PlayStation have the ability to download this content, or you still have the physical media still, and play it directly off of their consoles straight into the system, or straight into this brand new 4K display, whichever one they purchase from the CI dealers. And so that experience is going to be so much different and so much better than trying to stream something from Netflix 4K, right? Or stream something from YouTube 4K. It's going to be a real representation of what the creators of the content intended in the first place, and the creators and the manufacturers of the display intended when they made the devices.
Well, and take this with a grain of salt for what it's worth. Even in my own house, I'm not running 4K yet because I have a full system. It's fully distributed. And honestly, it's a huge chunk for me to bite off to replace and upgrade the entire system currently. Now, when I saw the One X was coming with the new World War II Call of Duty version in November, I said, you know what? I'll probably get this Xbox so I can play that World War II game, and I'll probably get a new 4K to go with it. So it's very possible. Julie, the last thing I want to talk about with this one is the proliferation of VR and the way in which some of these consoles are pushing VR.
Yeah, I mean, all of these developments in the gaming industry are super important for our industry. I mean, number one, it creates volume for some of these technologies, which will bring down the price of them when implemented in other form factors and other devices, movie servers or whatever. So, I mean, that's all going to obviously be a big deal for all of us. It creates a whole population of people that work on high resolution technologies and streaming and hardware and the whole ecosystem. And that can only be a good thing for the development of audio and video in our industry. So, you know, there's a high volume of users in the gaming community. And whatever they do, you know, it's kind of back when the porn industry was deciding a lot of the technologies that came out. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, blame the porn industry for adopting VHS over Betamax, and so that became the standard. And you know, because of the high volume of users and the high volume of use of the porn community, it helps define and drive some of these standards. They were supposed to be the ones that were going to decide HD DVD doing versus Blu-ray, as well as video, virtual reality and augmented reality and all of that stuff. So any community that is driving a high volume of new technologies is good for all of us.
Very good. All right, let's hit our last story of the day. This comes to us from CNET, and it is a Ring Video Doorbell version 2 review. So if you haven't seen the Ring, or if you want a little quick update on version 2, you can check it out here. Again, the link to this story and all of them will be in the description. But what I find interesting about this is not so much that it's a review and it's going through how these work, because most of us know how these work. What I like to see in this, and Tim, tell me if I'm wrong, but the second iteration of this, not much has changed other than the fact that they've added a removable battery, which makes charging easier. My son can no longer grab mine off the kitchen counter and walk around and call me from it 4 or 5 times a minute when it's supposed to be charging. But are we getting to the point where these are going to be a standard fare?
The video doorbells?
Yeah,
absolutely. It's the first time I saw one was a couple of years ago, and it's a neat concept, and it ties back into the IoT. Do it with me, do it for me. Do it yourself, and it gives you a couple different things. First of all, it's an added layer of security, right? And I think that the only thing that I would ask out of, I guess, version 3 of Ring, or whoever wants to make the next iteration, is to stop making them with batteries. It's to give, and it sounds silly, it sounds stupid, but if you think back to 20, 30 years ago, those doorbells were basically a step above a relay more than anything.
Right.
So there's wiring there. You can pull, I don't care if it's a PoE, or I don't care what it is, but give these suckers electricity right to the devices, so your son can't walk around and call you.
Kish, is this, or sorry, Cash,
Yeah.
Are we to the point where we need to, as Tim said, demand PoE, but also demand that these play with every leader? I.e., I love the Ring. I have one in my own house. I hate the fact it doesn't work with Apple's HomeKit or Z-Wave devices or other things. Are we to the point where these being siloed is detrimental to their implementation and sales?
That's a good question. When it comes to one of these products, I'm not really aware because we mostly do more commercial AV stuff versus residential. But this would help a lot of consumers and AV installers if it didn't have battery. I agree with Tim on it that anything with PoE or some sort of juice would help. Just have it powered through through the wall or through the circuit, and it would establish whatever is needed. But yes, interoperability is needed. It doesn't matter if it's you working with the Z-Wave Alliance or any others. These are supposed to be compatible with each other, right? As I assume. And once, then I think there shouldn't be any problem. They should work well in the industry. I mean, these are cool gadgets, and this is, I think, the step one of IoT, right? Getting into your home from the door.
Julie, I'll give you the last word on this. Have we reached kind of the peak of where this technology can go when it comes to video doorbells, or does the interoperability between it and all the other devices natively become the next step?
Well, there's certainly two schools of thought on standalone apps versus integrated apps. And some people are just quite happy with their standalone single purpose app, whether it's for the thermostat or the video doorbell. The thing that's inhibiting these video doorbells is that is the wiring, is the power. And when you consider 100,000 new homes being built a year, just run that Cat 5 to the front door location, and that can power it. And that can also, and with that kind of powering, you can also include other technologies like Z-Wave that can integrate well. So, right now we're limited by the power that the existing two wires can provide. And I think, let's go ahead and run a Cat 5 in all new homes. But there's still merit to having a standalone camera with audio separated from the doorbell as well. Have it at the front door at the correct location and use a smart doorbell instead. That Z-Wave doorbell, for example, that doesn't require much power.
Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us today. Julie, if people want to connect with you, where can they do that?
They can certainly go to cepro.com. I personally am on Twitter at Julie Jacobson with an SON. Would love to hear from your audience.
Excellent. Very good. Kash, thanks for joining us today. Where can people connect with you?
You can reach me on my my email, kashyap@connexpro.com, or you can visit us online at connexpro.com.
Very good. Tim, my friend, thanks for filling in. Where can people find you?
Best is, I guess, Twitter, TD, Tim David Albright, or the website.
Excellent. Thanks again. For myself, if you'd like to follow me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and every other social platform. But more importantly, please take a moment to stop by AVNation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to take a look at our underwriters. They support us, and we're extremely thankful for the support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.